And now for our feature presentation.
All right. They say liquid means forward, gunshot means rewind. So my selector, reload your carbine and rewind.
Yeah. Talib Kweli, Black Star. Yeah. Reflection eternal. I am what you want to be, but you can't though. Prime example, you cats can't flow, but you get the E for effort from my say till efforts we stay together, reign forever. I am what you want to be, but you can't though. Prime example, you cats can't flow, but you get an E for effort from my say till efforts we stay together, reign forever. Think I give a fuck about your clown posse? You insane, you acting like a journalist and racking my brain since I was tagging my name on the back of the train like my man in Lahane, packing the same little gap to put me back in the frame of mind to say fuck the 5-0. Let me explain the rhyme, yo, cut the lights low like Bob Marley. I'm the Black Star, they probably follow my every move like I'm the son of John Gotti. Escape to Paris like a jazz man round midnight. Queen banging like Josephine Baker, raising the kids right. Attack the dreaming, rap through the demons, see the situation and extract the meaning. Internationally known trees actually grown through cracks in the sidewalk. See it in my walk, hear it in my talk. Bet you cats feel it in my rap flow. You could throw me a spliff, but you could keep your tobacco. I am what you want to be, but you can't though. Prime example, you cats can't flow, but you get an E for effort from my say till efforts we stay together, reign forever. I am what you want to be, but you can't though. Prime example, you cats can't flow, but you get an E for effort from my say till efforts we stay together, reign forever. Yeah, come on, come on. Come on, yeah, come on, yeah, break it down like, are y'all with me tonight? Êtes-vous avec moi? Y'all love the children and dance like a leg buck. Say, ma, where you going with that flavor? These cats ain't in my league, this here is major. My state of the art, yeah, I play my part with razor sharp words shot straight from the heart. Beautiful like chords played on the harp, with trumpets blaring. Angels preparing for the fate we all sharing at one time or another. Through sunshine and thunder, ain't got no time for the blunders. Combine with one another to make the classical track. With battery in my back, I'm ever ready already. Plus magical at that, like mushrooms. From the plush room of the suite to city workers pushing dust brooms in the street. We complete the cipher. Push up your lighter. Throw your vanity in the bonfire. Word, I am what you want to be, but you can't though. Prime example, you cats can't flow, but you get an E for effort from our say till efforts we stay together, reign forever. I am what you want to be, but you can't though. Prime example, you cats can't flow, but you get an E for effort from our say till efforts we stay together, reign forever. I am what you
Test
want
1 2.
to be, but you can't though. Prime example, you cats can't flow, but you get an E for effort from our say till efforts we stay together, reign forever. I am what you want to be, but you can't though. Prime example.
What's up? What's up? Lordship in the building. Let me check out a couple of things. I want to be able to monitor myself. Let's see here. I really don't. I want to talk about Black Cowboys, but I'm kind of like ready to talk about something else, but we'll see.
Yo, what's your name?
J-Line.
What you do?
True school MC. Get it? Got it. Good.
Where you from?
Coming straight from Medina to the brotherly city. Get it?
Yo, brotherly love. Who you with?
Jazzy Jeff, peace moving myself and me. Get it?
P1 and AV.
Flip flavors like ill spectacular, non-stick spatula. Get it? Cause I flapjack tracks, hot bottom, bubbling from the surface to the underground, making people wonder how. Former labels flooded, wish a nigga saw me now. Sorry, did I strike a nerve? Oh well, hit the curve.
Get the dirt.
If you wonder which one, pick one. I've been the one since the last time, the next one.
Come on, man, that ain't fair. Half these cats don't even know what you're saying. Most of the other half don't care.
Alright, fine, I simplify if you insist. check it out, yo. I'ma break it down like this. 77, the Knicks won championship credit. I was 1 year old then. Now do you get it?
What about get the
Yo,
third?
I'm just giving you a piece of my mind. Eat a dick, then I flip you the bird. If you listen to the lyrics more than once, you wouldn't miss. But no, you rather have me break it down like this.
Yeah. Earlier I got to hang out on Street Knowledge channel and chop it up with him, as you know, about being an independent artist. I thought that was cool. So shout out to Street Knowledge, and shout out to some of the people that hang out here for going on over there. And I was able to get a lot of things off my chest. So it's always good to get things off your chest and do it in other places. You know what I'm saying? So I know it's late for some people because they're either in another country or they're in another coast. So the title do say Black Cowboys. You know what I'm saying? So I guess I better talk about Black Cowboys. Matter of fact, I'm going to read from The Adventures of the Negro Cowboy, but this book is based on a bigger book. That book is so big that they had to make another book that had highlights from the main book. And these cowboy stories are out there. You know, they based on, right after the Civil War and stuff like that. And, my way of thinking and the way things are today, when I hear these cowboy stories, I do hear stories of really tough dudes and stuff like that. But I just wonder who the authors, who the one that captured these stories, because the way they tell these stories are pretty weird. But I can't use my mind state today to judge the story. You know what I'm saying? I'm just going to accept the stories at face value. I'm not going to try to read in between the lines. I find these stories interesting. I didn't know what I was getting into when I started to read out of this book. And then I said, let me do a Google search on Black Cowboys. And for the most part, if you look up Black Cowboys from the 1800s, it's pretty safe. All the pictures are authentic and quite cultural. But if you just type in Black Cowboys by itself, you're going to get some stuff, but you're going to get a lot of weird stuff that has nothing to do with being a quote unquote cowboy. But it's mixed with authentic cowboy information in this other culture and lifestyle. It's really crazy. But then I'm reading these stories and about earlier cowboys, and I can understand how people from all walks of life, from all backgrounds and lifestyles, might find these stories interesting, because they can put their own the way that they think and process things. They can embellish from their own mind state on what the stories are really about. You see what I'm saying? So this is for the playback, and for the people that's listening, you don't have to text or chat in the chat room. It ain't all about that. But I guess tonight's show, until people get a notification, because people have not been getting my notification, this will be for the playback for the most part. All right. So I don't know where to go first. I guess I'll start with one chapter 7 out of The Adventures of the Negro Cowboy. Now trust me, this is a weird story. Let me make sure my audio is right. Okay, my audio is right. All right, so here we go. And I don't claim to be the best, reader. I'm not a, literary, I'm not a person who does this for a living. I don't claim to be the most advanced reader, but I'm going to read this. I can't comprehend though. My problem is I can comprehend too well. That's what I'm guilty of. I comprehend too much. So anyway, this chapter is called Bose Eichert and the Good Night Loving Trail. What a title. What kind of title is that? This book has many chapters in it, but like I said, this is an offshoot book. This is not even the main book. You see what I'm saying? The other chapters are called Deadwood Dick, The Wonderful Bill Pickett, The Peerless Jesse Stahl, and The End of the Trail, and Old Two Toes, and Mustangers and Bronx Busters, and Cowboys and Cowtowns. Now this book, it's about Negro cowboys, and it was written a long time ago. I guess it focused on right after the Civil War, and yeah, it's interesting. So we're gonna go into chapter 7. I was trying to look at this is the third printing. This copyright is from 1965, 1966. Okay, I'm sure I could probably get, $300 or $400 for this book if I was to sell it. So anyway, one cattle trail out of Texas is entirely different from the trails that went north through Kansas. It went southwest through the central Texas into the Pecos River. And then it turned north to go through New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming. Instead of running through rows and plains dotted by jack oaks and crossed by many rivers, it led through waterless deserts and over rough mountains. Instead of passing settled countries and comparatively peaceful Indian reservations, it went through desolate wastelands and menaced by hostile Comanches and Apaches. Now, I don't really have the patience to read all of this, but the story is so weird. I'm going to try to read as much as possible without boring myself, because I am drinking red wine and it's making me sleepy. So I'm going to have to chase this with vodka, I think, a vodka shot. So let me open up my little airplane vodka shot. All right, this microphone is amazing. All right, one more. Okay, there we go. Now, we're going to go down the rabbit hole. It was pioneered by Colonial Charles Goodnight and Oliver Loving, two Texas cattlemen. Immediately after the end of the Civil War, these two men decided to drive their cattle to the army post of New Mexico and the mining camp of Colorado. They threw their two herds together and began to drive from Weatherford, Texas. Okay, so we're going to hear about, real men working together, getting money, making their way, doing things that other people dare to do. Here we go. So there was various kinds of dangers on all the trails in those days. On the Goodnight Loving Trail, so he must have did something great if they named the trail after him. On the Goodnight Loving Trail, however, there was a particular horror. Just before the trail reached the Pecos River, it had to go through about 80 miles of waterless desert. So imagine taking cattle across 80 miles of waterless desert. Cattle can only go without water probably a couple of days. Don't ask me how I know that, but it's probably common sense. but it's going to take them at least 5 days to get this cattle across the desert. So anyway, on the trail, a longhorn herd normally needs water every day. In an emergency, it could go 2 days without water, but thirst was hard on a steer. It did not like going without water, so it became unruly and hard to handle. Goodnight and Loving knew that to get across the 80-mile desert, the herd would have to go approximately 5 days without water. I think it's odd that these two guys' name is Goodnight and Loving. But that's a real trail. The trail exists, and that's their name. It is either a coincidence, or it's odd, or it just makes a good story. Okay? This kind of story needs to... All right, I ain't gonna go there. All right, anyway. The Cowboys had a problem. On their first drive, Goodnight and Lovin started with a mixed herd that contained cows as well as steers. They realized that they had to move fast and that they could not slow down by calves born along the way. So each morning, a cowboy had to shoot the calves born during the night. And this unfortunate job fell on a Negro cowboy, Negro cowboy Jim Fowler. And Jim did not like the job, but he could not get out of it. Interesting. So make the Negro kill the baby cows. All right. Every morning. All right. Because they ain't going to be able to make the trip. That's why, of course. So when the herd approached the long stretch of desert, Goodnight and Lovin stopped at a headwater of the Middle Concho. And there they allowed the herd to drink its fill of fresh water and prepare for the long dry stretch. All right, now it's about to get interesting. And this is for the playback. Shout out and thank you for anybody who listens to the playback or whatnot. So anyway, here we go. Trust me, if you're listening in the background secretly or whatever, this is gonna be the weirdest story you heard this year. It just so happens it's a Negro cowboy story. All right, and I've only read a few paragraphs, so before this chapter is over, I'm going to be reading parts that I have not read yet, and I'm going to be hearing it for the first time as well. So here we go. As they entered the desert, the trail bosses tried to pace the restless herd. They drove late into the afternoon and in the early morning, hoping to save the strength of the cattle. But the thirsty, restless animals would not bed down at night. They merely milled around, so the Cowboys found it easier to drive straight through. So now I got to skip through a bunch of pictures. You know, this is radio or this is streaming, so I can't show you the pictures, but I will show you pictures later on from the Smithsonian on this screen a little bit. So anyway, Goodnight led the way, guiding the point riders. Loving stayed with the drag, saving every animal he could. See what I'm saying? Drag means something different then than it does now. They lost some cattle on the drive across the desert stretch. Those could not survive without water. They lost the ones that could not survive without water. They lost more at the river, where about 500 heads stampeded after smelling the water of the Pecos. So they got close enough for the cattle to smell it. They started to stampede, and a bunch of them got killed that way. Now check this out. And they lost a few more to the poison alkali water of potholes that lined the trail. So they were so thirsty that any hint, any sight of any kind of moisture, they sipped in it and killed them. So that first drive over Goodnight and Loving Trail made history in the cattle country. One of the cowboys who helped to make history was Bose Eichert, a Negro. When the older cowboy died in Texas in 1929, the saddened Goodnight, a short time before his own death, erected a marker. So yeah, this author for this chapter used very colorful and interesting words to describe the relationship of these cowboys and stuff in their life. All right. So here's Bose Eichert. Let me see. Here's Bose Eichert. There's a quote. Bose Eichert served with me for years on the Goodnight Loving Trail. Never shirked a duty or disobeyed an order. Rode with me in many stampedes, participated in the engagements with Comanches, and splendid behavior. That was a quote. So Bose was born a slave in Mississippi. Before the Civil War, he brought to Texas by his master family and the Eicherts. And when he was 5 years old, growing up on the frontier near Weatherford, Texas, he learned to ride and rope and fight. These skills made him a valuable hand later. And Bose Eichert first rode for Oliver Loving, but when Loving died after a fight with the Comanches, Bose began to ride for Goodnight. And that information could be found also in J. Evetts Haley, the told story of Charles Goodnight and Cowman and Plainsman. So that information came from another book. So Goodnight said that Bose surpassed any man I had in endurance and stamina. Goodnight said that Bose surpassed any man I had in endurance and in stamina. Get your mind out the gutter. This is a true story about black cowboys in the right after Civil War. Okay. There was a dignity, a cleanliness, and a reliability about him that was wonderful. He paid no attention to women. His behavior was very good in a fight, and he was probably the most devoted man to me and that I ever had. I have trusted him farther than any living man. He was my detective, banker, and everything else in Colorado, New Mexico, and the other wild countries I was in. The nearest and the only bank was at Denver, and when we carried money, I gave it to Bose, for a thief would never think of robbing him, never think of looking in a Negro's bed for money. Wow. Okay. Colorful choice of words. This is a very colorful author. We went through some horrible trails during those 4 years on the trail. While I had a good constitution and endurance after being in the middle saddle for several days and nights at a time on various occasions, and finding that I could stand it no longer, I would ask Bose if he would take my place, and he never failed to answer me in the most cheerful and willingful manner, and was most skilled and was the most skilled and trustworthy man I had. So, his boss was very fond of him. But it's good that somebody can speak of a brother in such a positive way. After all, he was a brother, and this the white man had nothing but kind words to say about this man. So don't try to, muddy the compliment and ruin the nature of this man's positive history and how great he was at the time. Now, but he wasn't perfect. He wasn't a saint, but he was a good cowboy. So it would take many pages to tell about the trails that Bowes and Eichert and Charles Goodnight rode together. J. Evans Haley wrote that Bowes Eichert added life, friendship, and color to the Goodnight Trail. And to the end of his long days, Goodnight subscribed to his greatest depth to man still due to this Negro who saved his life several times, and this superb writer, remarkable trail hand, and devoted servant. Okay. I'm hearing this for the first time as well. Devoted servant. Okay. One time on the trail, just before dawn, there was a stampede, and because the cattle had been quiet, Goodnight had left Bowes alone with the herd and had ridden into the wagon to wake the cook and to get the crew moving. Suddenly something startled the cattle, which came stampeding down towards the camp. Goodnight grabbed a blanket and ran out, waving it and making as much noise as he could. And in this way, he was able to split the herd, which poured around the chuck wagon and the men sleeping on the ground. So he was able to divert the stampede. 'Cause that's the most dangerous thing out there is besides, cowboy, Indians and coyotes or whatever. Stampede will take you out. A bucking horse or a stampede will take your ass out anytime. So anyway, then he found his horse, which was still tethered to the wagon wheel. He mounted and raced up the side of the stampede herd, and by now, dawn was near, and Goodnight could see near the front bank of the herd. He saw Bowes, and in a few minutes, Bowes looked back and saw him, and immediately moved to turn the leaders. Working together, the two men soon had the herd circled and the stampede stopped. After things quieted down, Goodnight asked Bowes why had he not tried to turn the herd earlier, and Bowes explained was simple. He had ridden flank near the front until he could see, for he had been afraid that Indians might be riding at the rear. So Bowes had a right to be worried, for stampeding trail herds was a favorite Comanche trick. So Bowes had game, you know what I'm saying? He peeped game. Bowes Eichert showed a proper respect for Indians, but he was no coward. When Goodnight was injured in the northern New Mexico and lay helpless in the shade of the wagon, Bowes rode out to stop a local outlaw leader from cutting the herd. And at the end of one drive, when Goodnight drove from Colorado to Texas carrying all the profits of the year's drive with him, Bowes was in the driver's seat, armed and alert. He drove through a country made of dangers. He drove through a country made dangerous by outlaws, Indians, and lawless Mexicans. Now, he was brave enough to carry all the money they made the whole year through outlaws, Indians, and Mexicans. Now, that's pretty hard. That's pretty tough as a person. All right. And he was trustworthy. He was loyal because he was carrying his boss's money. But anyway, where the Goodnight Loving Trail went north through New Mexico, it passed near Lincoln, the scene of the famous Lincoln Country War. One of the main reasons this war became famous was that Billy the Kid took part in it. And there was also many different stories about the Lincoln Country War that we'll never know all of what actually happened. So anyway, one thing is clear. In this bloody feud, both whites and Negroes died. Negroes fought on both sides, and Billy the Kid rode with Negroes. When the Kid and his gang was trapped in a burning building, Negroes were with them. Outside Negro troops surrounded the house. When Territorial Governor Lew Wallace searched for witnesses trying to learn the truth about the madness in Lincoln Country, he sent a Negro rider to find Billy the Kid and offer him a safe conduct. You know, when they talk about Billy the Kid, they never mention Negroes. And did you know that 1 in 4 cowboys was black? But they never talk about black cowboys. And 1 in 4 cowboys is a significant, 1 in 4, being 1 in 4 cowboys is a significant number. So there were many cowboys who rode along the Goodnight Loving Trail in New Mexico without getting into range feuds or getting their name in newspapers. One of these is a Negro cowboy named Ad, A-D-D. The range boss of the LFD outfit. Ad usually headed a crew of South Texas Negro cowboys, according to the Howard Thorpe. All right, well, according to Howard Thorpe, I'm saying it like it's a pamphlet or something. But himself a cowboy, songwriter, and a ballad collector, Ad was one of the best cowhands on the Pecos River. Cowmen from Tulsa, Texas to Las Vegas, New Mexico knew Ad, and many of them at different times had worked on roundups with him. Now let me make sure I didn't skip anything, 'cause I feel like I skipped a whole page. Yeah. No, I didn't skip anything. It's weird. Okay. So, experience as a ranger, boss made Ad a expert. And, experience as a ranger boss made Ad an expert. He became famous among the cattlemen of Southwest and eventually became the subject of a cowboy song. According to Howard Thorpe, the song concerns a critter found in one roundup and claims by no one. And Ad was the dictionary on earmark and brands, and this one was a puzzler even to him. He read the tally of the brand. So there's lyrics to a song. I'd rather not sing those lyrics, but I'll recite them. She got an old block, and I ain't reading that. She got old block and lightning rod, 946 in the. I can't read these lyrics. I don't have too much wine and vodka, but it's some, and they talk different back then too, so I don't even understand the slang. So since none of the punchers claimed the critter, old Ad just added his own brand for one more brand or less won't be, it won't do no harm. So Ad was known to respect all over. He was known and respected all over the Pecos area of New Mexico, and so it was not surprising that the news of his plans spread rapidly when he told a few friends. He told a few friends one fall that he intended to be married on Christmas Day. So wildly separated widely separated ranchers, all of them who knew and liked him, decided to send presents. Wow. Most of them prompted by their practical wives, and decided on the same presents. All right. And some, so when Ad and his bride rode on their wedding day to the Roswell Freight Depot, they found 19 cook stoves waiting for him. Oh, so that makes sense. They all had the same bright idea. They all gave him the same presents, which was kind of crazy. So cowboys like Bowles and Ad rode up all the trails. Their job was to deliver beef to nations of the hungry people. And though cloudbursts and burning sun through the mud and choking on dust, these men rode on. They went where the trails went, and they did their job. But I have a feeling like this is not the same chapter I was reading. It felt like I jumped and lost you know what I'm saying? Like I'd lost my way along the way. Because that ain't what I read, but prior to going live. But I guess that's it. Let me see. It's more. So that was the end of that chapter. Chapter 7 of The Adventures of the Negro Cowboy. It's a book that's by Philip Durham and Everett L. Jones. So this book is by two men. All right. Yeah, the Negro Cowboys. But I also want to add that that The Adventures of the Negro Cowboy is a true history patterned after a longer and more scholarly book called The Negro Cowboys. Therefore, if one wants to check the sources and the references for this work, he should turn to the longer book. There he will find 23 pages of notes and 15 pages of bibliography. In the preface to the longer book, we thank those many people who helped us in our work. We wish to thank them all again. All right. So that was written, that was the preface written by the University of California, Los Angeles. So the picture, that's the picture for this show, is the picture of the front cover. All right. And we're going to switch to the TV set for a second. Now, this is from the Smithsonian. It says lesser known history of African American cowboys. You can go there and read for yourself. It's the SmithsonianMag.com, and just type in SmithsonianMag.com/history, and or just it's a long thing after that, so you can't type in history in black. You got to type in history lesser known history of African American cowboys, but you have to put a dash in between each word. So it's SmithsonianMag.com/history/lesser then dash known dash history dash African dash American dash cowboy. All right. Or just type in black cowboys. On Google, you should be able to find it. So it says here 1 in 4 cowboys was black. So why aren't there more present in popular culture? Now, I seen a music video by Massive Attack years ago. And Massive Attack is good at making music videos with people other than themselves in the video. So one time they had a gang in LA. One time they had an overage stripper who was, her stripping days are over, but she's still stripping. Another video, they had black cowboys from Philadelphia in their music video. Now, that might not have been Massive Attack. I think it was another group. They had black cowboys in the video, but the artist was not in the video, but they were singing the songs. So I've seen some cool looking cowboys of all ages, riding horses like people rode Harleys, had the same posture and the same stance as somebody who's tough riding motorcycles or hanging out, holding down the corner, but they were on horseback out of Philly. And when I saw the video, I told my homie, I said, man, they in Philly. He said, they not in Philly, man. They somewhere out in Colorado somewhere. I said, nah, man, that's Philly. They in Philly. So I don't know what the name of the group is. But yeah, this is another black cowboy. You see all his guns at the bottom of his feet. This article is by Katie Najibadam. I don't know who that is. It could be a Jewish writer. Whenever you look up articles on black people, especially in magazines like Vibe magazine and stuff like that, and they talk about different black artists, usually it's a Jewish writer. I'm not saying that's negative or positive, but Jewish people like to write. So it's funny that this story is the first story too, because the next story in the next chapter was about Dodge City, and I didn't go into that. But yeah, I'm just giving you a chance to see the article and see what kind of pictures they have here. This is a nice picture right here. He looked pretty tough. I wouldn't want to get in a fist fight with him. It looks like he was some kind of sheriff. Right after the Civil War, being a cowboy was one of the few jobs open to men of color who wanted to not serve as an elevator operator or a delivery boy or other similar occupations. And that was said by William Lawrence Katz, a scholar of African American history and the author of 40 books on the topic, including the Black West. And my wife is a African American studies major. She got her degree in African American studies. I guess that's why we got a pretty cool book collection. And it said free blacks skilled in herding cattle found themselves in even greater demand when ranchers began selling their livestock in northern states. Oh, here's another picture here. Let me scroll back up. Oh, that's not a Negro. Oh, isn't that a coincidence? That is the real life good night right there that we was talking about in the story. I think that's him or somebody playing him in a movie. But it's not a coincidence. The real life goodnight fondness for Eichert is clear in the epitaph he penned for the cowboy. Served with me 4 years on the goodnight loving trail. Wow, it's the exact quote. Never shirked a duty or disobeyed an order. Rode with me in many stampedes. Participated in 3 engagements with Comanches. What a coincidence. I just read out of this book the same quote. And then I find it here on Google. And my book is physically many, many years old. This book that I hold is many, many years old. This is just a crazy coincidence. Who's in the chat room? Oh, cool. Right on. I appreciate you listening. I'm wrapping it up. I'm just showing some pictures of black cowboys, and I just told one story out of this book. It was from chapter 7, and I appreciate you coming through and saying some. I know a lot of people, sometimes you just want to turn on the show and just do whatever you need to do, whether you chilling or getting ready for work or whatever. I know there's a time zone difference. I hope you enjoy the mix in the background. The mix in the background was is from Charlie Dark of the UK. His thing was to unite black DJs in the UK because he felt that black music wasn't getting enough support in London. So he tried to unify a bunch of black DJs, and they would play only their music at the clubs to expose more people to their music. So Charlie Dark, he tried to use a name for the collective that belonged to a group in the United States. It was very similar, but that was the only bump in the road he had. But Charlie Dark, other than that, he's a very good producer and DJ. And because of Charlie Dark remixing Amy Winehouse, him and his crew, Bugs in the Attics, because of Charlie Dark and Bugs in the Attic crew, they actually helped Amy Winehouse blow up, because her album had already been out for 2 years and nobody gave a damn. So when Charlie Dark and his crew started remixing her album, that's when she blew up. So Charlie Dark is responsible for this mix in the background. This is part of my collection here. So we're scrolling on down. I like this little gimmick with the television thing. I did that just for this show, and if you take one of my classes, you'll learn how to do similar things like this. So this one person who left a comment on the Smithsonian article said, not only there were numerous African-American cowboys employed as hired help, in Florida, we can cite the story of Tom Silas, a cattleman who was born a slave on a Georgia plantation and became one of the largest ranchers in what is now the area of south of Disney World. And Silas began as a cowboy in Florida during the 1870s following the emancipation. White ranchers allowed Silas to take some of his wages in cattle, and he gradually built a huge herd and a 2,000-acre ranch. His son Lawrence, one of 13 children, later took up the same trade, although his mother sold the ranch and cattle following Tom's death around the turn of the century. So there was an author who brought fame to Silas' family when in 1942 the renowned Saturday Evening Post published an article entitled Lawrence of the River, chronicling the achievements of Silas' family in the Kissimmee River Valley of Central Florida. Lawrence Silas, born in Canansville in 1891, could still be found on horseback until he suffered a diabetic stroke in 1971, and passing 3 years later. Wow. And he and his father had helped pave the way to improve educational access for African Americans, assisted in the founding of a church, a beach open to blacks, and earned the trust and the respect of white cattlemen in the region. Now, when people say that, it usually tripped me out. You say, oh, I missed it, I gotta watch the replay. Black Cowboys is something I would like to learn about. I used to watch Westerns. Yeah, I used to watch Westerns too. We used to hear about Billy the Kid and all this stuff, but we didn't know that Billy had black cowboys around him. You know, when Billy was caught in that burning house, there were black people, black cowboys in the house with him. They sent a black cowboy to negotiate with Billy the Kid to offer him a way out and stuff like that. So I was reading from a book called The Adventures of the Negro Cowboy, which is a watered down version of a bigger book. And so, you know, I had been drinking red wine and stuff like that, so I really had to really drag myself to do today's show. And so I had to chase the red wine. Red wine, certain wines just make me sleepy. Merlot, red wine, all that stuff makes me sleepy. So I had to chase it with vodka and a little vodka shot just to get enough energy to do today's show. Because, you know, these type of shows are not, you know, you like to see people get roasted and stuff like that. And but I got to do these shows too. You know what I'm saying? Because I've been, ever since, even before Black History Month, you know, I do shows like this every now and then. You know, I don't have to wait till February to do a show like this. So I appreciate if you check out the replay and stuff like that.
United Smart Broadcasters Collective.
Lock it down, cause we doing it live. Plus we got more in deck than the Enterprise. And if I lay right there in between your thighs, you will see another episode of Deep Space Nine. Text message me on the video screen. Get that miss on the wireless. Never had to buy it, please. Satellite system, CRV. We can fold up, remove the two back seats. Just pass me your Dixie cup.